This historic 2020 NBA championship belongs to the Los Angeles Lakers.
The 2019 to 2020 NBA season may have ended in a whimper more than a bang, but there's no reason not to be excited for what is to come for the league. The upcoming free agent class isn't bad, but more importantly, there are a couple of blockbuster trades we see happening in the offseason. For example, Giannis Antetokounmpo exiting the Bucks to head to Golden State is a possibility, though a relatively small one. Now, let's look at 10 trades that are more likely to happen, and ones that will definitely shake things up should they come to fruition. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We're giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice, so be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter this giveaway. It's really that simple. Number 1. Derrick Rose back to Chicago. This is one trade that is bound to make everyone happy. Derrick Rose left the Bulls to come find greener pastures in 2016, but so far all he's found is one disappointment after another. Rose almost retired following his unsuccessful stint in Cleveland before slowly inching back to his old self in the last 2 seasons on subpar teams. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bulls have never regained its old winning ways without the 31-year-old MVP. They may have acquired some intriguing recruits in recent years, but their total wins have yet to increase. This might be the perfect time for a comeback because, well, Derrick Rose himself has been saying in recent interviews that he's ready to start dominating the league again. It's practical for Chicago to get him now that his trade value isn't all that high, given all the brutal injuries he sustained in the past years. Coincidentally, the Bulls have several round 2 picks and a couple of inexpensive players to trade. They could offer the Pistons Thaddeus Young and Chris Dunn, and a second-round pick for the point guard they really need right now. Next up, Aaron Gordon to Phoenix. Orlando can move Gordon over to the Suns in exchange for Ty Jerome, Kelly Oubre Jr., and a 2022 second-round pick. Now, doesn't that sound like an upgrade for everyone involved? Kelly Oubre Jr. could be everything Phoenix wanted Gordon to be. They need someone who can direct the show, create shots, and be a face-up floor spacer, and someone who can potentially run a pick and roll. Oubre's shot creation might be worth the opportunity cost after all, and while there are fears about Oubre's potential departure due to his injured knee, Ty Jerome and a future round 2 pick can sweeten the deal and pick up the slack. Meanwhile, Gordon's all-around impact may be exactly what the Suns need to hang tough in 2021's playoff conversion. We all know Phoenix needs a viable starting lineup, and while playing Aaron with Ricky Rubio and DeAndre Ayton might make for tight quarters, the beefed-up defense could be very good for the Suns. Next up, Donovan Mitchell to Miami Heat. The Jazz built the team around budding superstar Donovan Mitchell, but they just don't look ready to take it all the way to the finals anytime soon. The Western Conference is way too loaded to give Utah the right of way as it exists right now, but a combination of Kelly Olynyk, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and Kendrick Nunn might give them enough juice for a rebuild and set them right up for a strong future. Meanwhile, can you imagine Miami building another big 3 with Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo? With that kind of supporting cast they have over in South Beach, despite the fact that they might need plenty of sharpshooters to beef up that lineup, Miami might be looking at yet another championship. They'd be aggressive and dynamic on both offense and defense, and it's difficult to imagine any Eastern Conference team that can stand up to them if this trade goes through. Next up, Drew Holiday out of the Pelicans. New Orleans is in a rather unenviable position. Need we remind you that Alvin Gentry even lost his job after the team narrowly missed the bubble playoffs under his watch? They need Bradley Beal now more than ever to turn things around, but we'll get to that later on. For now, we gotta focus on the fact that the Pelicans need to move Holiday, and they need to move him fast. There is no better time than now because Drew's contract is guaranteed next season at $25 million, and then he would have a player option he can pick up after the 2021 season for $26 million. And you know which team could actually benefit from signing Holiday? Well, what about the Nets? Brooklyn is a dark horse contender for Holiday, and can you imagine him playing alongside Kevin Durant and Kyle Irving, both of whom will be back next season? There were actually talks of the Nets already looking at Holiday prior to the shutdown, and it might be high time to revisit those negotiations soon. Next up, Chris Paul out of Oklahoma City in exchange for some big Knicks guns. It's no big secret that New York has been sniffing around Chris Paul, and it certainly doesn't seem like OKC is hell-bent on keeping him around. Don't get us wrong, CP3 was an absolute revelation for the Thunder, especially in the last season. No one will ever forget how he brought a team that was counted out by many early on into the playoffs in the West, but Oklahoma's future just doesn't seem to include Chris Paul in it. Now, the Knicks are one of the very very few teams that might have enough cap space to sign Paul. New York has not had a reliable point guard in this millennium, no offense, and they could use a veteran like CP3 to help develop their young stars. With him, the Knicks could finally be en route to finishing their rebuild, which feels like it has been going on forever, and finally define a winning culture. In exchange, New York can give up a combination of Frank Ntilikina, Elfrid Payton, Kevin Knox, and Bobby Portis, guys that could potentially shape the future for the Thunder. Next up is Victor Oladipo. This guy has been the subject of so many trade rumors and reports. At this point, I'd be more surprised if he ends up staying with the Pacers. Just like Derrick Rose before him, Oladipo has an unfortunate history with injuries, but when he's healthy, he's a total star. If the Pacers do move him, they'd be able to make a bidding war for this guy's services. After all, Victor is not the kind of guy organizations would just want to part with, but the moment he makes it clear that he wants to take his talents elsewhere, Indiana could retool by maximizing the returns. Victor has a year remaining on his contract when he's set to rake in over $20 million. He can go into unrestricted free agency after 2021, so it would benefit Indiana to move him right now. Next up is Buddy Hield to the Sacramento Kings in exchange for some powerful 76ers. Hield and Sacramento are not on the best terms right now. Buddy's not happy to come off the bench, and his extension negotiations have turned into quite a sticking pot for everyone involved. Paying him right along with the highest paid rookie ever, Bogdanovich, is gonna get untenable pretty soon. The current situation of the Sixers is definitely not what they had in mind when they landed Al Horford and got Josh Richardson as part of the Jimmy Butler trade. But, well, here we are. Horford is definitely lined up to get the axe this offseason, but the thing is, they need a great shooter in return, and it's gonna be a challenge because, you know, the Achilles issues have really been holding him back. Hield may be a perfect fit for a team trying to build muscle around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, but if we're being honest here, Philly needs to sweeten the deal a ton to make things happen. If they need to send off one of their many other seconds to entice the Kings to sign off on this complex trade, then they should do it. Next, Elie Okobo to Detroit in exchange for Luke Kennard to Phoenix. Detroit and Phoenix actually already started talking about an arrangement for Kennard, assembled around Javon Carter, Elie Okobo, and this year's first pick. The negotiations hit a brick wall because neither side was willing to compromise protection on the pick. Both teams should be in a better mood to revisit these talks once the draft order is set. Phoenix should look to kick the can if it winds up with a top 4 pick. But then again, Detroit would have the juice to demand more if Kennard wasn't recovering from knee trouble. Even then, adding Kennard to the second unit would be a dream for the Suns. Finally, we have Kevin Love heading to the Knicks in exchange for Taj Gibson and Bobby Portis. Perhaps, if it comes to fruition, this deal would be the dream. The Knicks could pull this deal off in tandem with the CP3 trade if it's delayed. They wouldn't even need to use cap space to sign Kevin Love, and they'd be banking on the lofty expiring price points of Taj Gibson and Bobby Portis. Granted that acquiring both Love and Paul would remove the Knicks from the 2021 free agency, but hey, that's not the worst thing that could happen to them. Besides, Cleveland could push for a second-round pick or 2 if it's feeling especially shortchanged about this potential trade. Anyway, that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.